In this episode, hosted by Zara Simba, former freedom fighter Bourema Niambele highlights the importance of African pride by sharing his story and speaking about his work as a Malian advocate for African rights in the Bronx.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Zara Simba. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a freshman at Barnard College, as well as an international student from Tanzania. Today is March 20th, 2021, and I'm so happy to be hosting a very special guest, Bourema Niambele.
First of all, I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity. My name is Bourema Niambele. That's a Bourema. Niambele is Niambele, but everyone call me here Naby. So I've been here almost 27 years in the Bronx in New York. You know, I'm in the campaign office, so can you guys give your voice a little down? Thank you.
Before we start, I'd like to confirm that you're aware of your rights as a guest on the podcast, as outlined in the consent form I sent you.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your hometown and what your life was like when you lived there?
I'm from Mali because my parents from Mali, but I'm born in Ivory Coast, so I grew up in Ivory Coast. I mean, I grew up like in any African child, you know what I mean? So any African child in a little city, because I'm born in Ivory Coast, 140 miles from Abidjan, a town named Divo, who have almost 250,000 people at that time. It's close now to a million people. I went to school like in any different child. At some point of my childhood, when I was 15 years old, it was a shock because my father was a little bit involved in politics, and my father was arrested for a couple of months, like in 8 months. When he was arrested, so he had no problem, but when he come back home, he lose one of his leg because of the torture. That affected me when I was 15. That's where I start to get involved on the community issue and fighting for injustice. But at that point, I make my mind to say that I want to fight for, because that time we have only one political party. So my first main thing was to make sure people not get dressed because your political opinion or whatever different issue you have. My father was even part of that political party. He was not like he was in opposition or anything. In Africa at that time, the government have one organization in a school where everybody have to be member of. So I refused to take the membership of that organization, and that was a long time ago. This happened in 1978.
When you were growing up in Ivory Coast, did you always imagine yourself traveling abroad?
Not very much here, because as somebody who's involved in politics, you know, your own desire is to stay home, to stay there, to make change for people, you know, and little by little things change. I traveled a little bit, lot of places in Africa. I went to South Africa, I went to Zimbabwe, but all those things I traveled was just to fight for freedom, because I work with the African Congress in 1981. And also I went to Zimbabwe, and you know, before Zimbabwe was independent in 1980. I traveled a little bit lot also in West Africa, Ghana. As someone who are involved in politics, sometimes I have to hiding. And when I was hiding, so a lot of time I'm in the Burkina Faso, or I'm in Niger, or Togo, or Benin, you know, those countries who are close to where I was living. And sometimes they think I'm far away, but I was just close right there. So yeah, I travel, but not just to go as an immigrant. You don't want to get arrested so much at that time because you could lose your life.
Do you think traveling around made you change your perceptions of Ivory Coast?
You know, in the beginning, you know, when I was doing those travel thing, it was all about freedom. Okay, and I fight to make sure. In 1990, we have Ivory Coast. We pushed the president who was there, to get to democracy. I was one of the first members of Laurent Gbagbo political party, the Front Populaire Ivoirien. And in 1993, I resigned from that party, but I did a lot of fight. And that party also helped me to understand very much the fight, because, you know, when you are in opposition in Africa, it teaches you how to sometimes be careful, and teach you also how to know people. because you can't just go to people and get open. You have to work on people's mind. You have to make sure you got the people in your hand before you open yourself. So it's different than political thing now, social media now, a lot of the young people can say whatever lot of stuff they could say, or you could go do a lot of stuff. In 1980s, you couldn't do that. So before you open to anybody, to even in school, you are a member of different organization, which is now for the political party. You have to make sure the young kid or the person you want to talk to, you already get to the person's mind. You already know which feeling the person has. So, I miss those kind of activities now, because, you don't need to do that now.
I definitely see what you mean in terms of changing the nature of activism over time. You are so involved in African liberation movements. What led you to coming to New York?
Sometimes you get yourself in some of these places by accident or by chance. I have a chance to travel a lot to Europe. I have a chance to go to a lot of different places. And I have a chance to meet a lady who was coming from this country, but I didn't know. We spoke and we started to dating at some point. She told me she was from Italy, and I met her in Switzerland. We was together almost for 2 or 3 months, and then I returned back to Africa. 2 months later on, she went back there, and she stayed with me for 2 or 3 years. And that's the time when she went back. I know she was born here in the United States and she was American, but in the beginning, I think she was from Italy. At some point, she wanted to finish her school. And I don't want to be also the reason why she cannot finish her school, because when I met her, she was just 19 years old. She decided going back to school. When she comes, every time when I'm not here, at some point she go back to Africa. Then I decide to come for her to make some time in school. This is how I get here.
Before you came to America, what were your expectations?
Oh, boy. In the first place, I didn't even want to come, to tell you the truth, because I was scared of the language. I was not speaking English. And for someone who was not just somebody who stayed in one country, and I traveled a lot, and I could see the difference of going to a country where you don't speak a language. So this was one of the reasons why she stayed with me a long time before I even accept to come in, because the language, and also I don't want to be immigrant somewhere. I just want to do my political fight and get to exactly where I want to be. And that was my mindset. But when I get myself here, then the prospect changed. In the beginning, it was a little hard because the thing I was expecting, because I knew the language would be one of the issues. That time also I have like 2 kids back home, because I have a different lady, which I have a kid ready with that lady before I met this one. And those kids was my responsibility. I have to take care of them. So when you came in here, you have no choice. You have to start doing some stuff. I couldn't go back that time. That's how I stay here. But in the beginning, when I came, I just said to myself, maybe she finished school in 3 years, maybe we go in 4 years, or maybe, at least at 5 years, we are out here and we are home. And you see, I'm still here.
So what do you like about New York City? What do you think has made you stay here for 27 years?
In the beginning, it was all about money, to tell you the truth. And that time, I created a company, myself, a transportation company. I was doing good. And in 2007, my life or my prospect changed a little bit because it was tragedy. The Malian government have an organization. All the Malian people outside the country, they are part of that organization. And I was judiciary secretary of that organization. So in 2007, we have a fire to take a house, which we lose almost 10 people with 9 children. As a judiciary secretary of Malian community, it was my responsibility to find out and be able to figure out what happened and also save the family. Around 5 o'clock in the morning, I was trying to go to my job, and I just listened to news 10:10 when, and they talk about a West African family house have been burned and 10 people died in the Highbridge neighborhood, which at that time I was living up there by the hill. And I just turned back my car and forgot about going to work. and tried to figure out who he was. And this sad part is the person whose house was burned down, he was our financial secretary. And by that time, we have 2 or 3 people who was living here who want to go back home, who didn't have money, who didn't have anything. So we have to collect money. And this treasurer take his own money from his pocket and take all those people back home, pay their ticket and all that. When he was back home, and this happened to his family, I had to turn back. And when I came back to that neighborhood, the insurance company who have supposed to insure the house, so they already have a press conference, said it was a lot of people in the house. You know, it's all about money that time. So when I came and I present myself as Judiciary Secretary of High Council of Malian, the news organizations now start to coming to me and start to asking to say, oh, it's a lot of people was living in the house. It was 3 or 4 family people living in the house. This is why the thing was not by accident, but it was by, you know what I mean? So a lot of stuff. So I just have to make sure people understand who we are, because when they say African, these are the people who don't know what to do or where they're coming from, or they have no respect for law and all that. I went to school, I went to law school. So a lot of those people talk about law. I know more than them. Yeah, you are born here in the United States, but I have more education than you, even if I'm coming from different places. So my first thing to them, I said, we as an African and we as a Muslim, the first thing when some tragedies like this happen, people lose 9 children. One lady lose 5 kids. And it was a man who lost his wife with 2 twins who was just 2 weeks old. And people are here and talk about money. That's not the way we see life in Africa. Each one of us here, we have a kid, we have a family. And the only thing you have here to talk about is just about money. I said, I just want everybody from New York City and New York State, everybody to just pray for this kid and parent who just lost so many people. And the thing we need is your prayer. It doesn't matter which religion you are. We are Muslim, but we believe in all the prophet and all the messengers from God. Even if you don't believe on the religion, if you believe in God, we just want you to pray for this family. When we finished the press conference, all the news people just pick up and they broke up. And everybody in New York City was moved by this. And this was the first time people coming to understand how much the African was here. Because it was the first time when you have so many Africans and all the elected officials from the governor to the Hillary Clinton that time, who was senator of New York, they all coming down to here in the Bronx. And everybody came in here in the Bronx, and this is the first time people understand it was so much African concentration here in the Bronx. That changed my prospect of life in America, because I saw people coming to help us who didn't even know where we was coming from. Different people from different religion, different from different race, people from every background, poor, rich, okay, everyone. When we was going to the cemetery in New Jersey, they opened the toll. We have almost 150 cars driving to go to New Jersey. No one paid a toll. The Port Authority opened the bridge for us to just go and come back. Congressman at that time, Rango and Jose Serrano, I want to thank them here again, because the man who lost his wife, at that time he had a deportation. He couldn't even go to Africa. So they have to take off his deportation, give him authorization to go back to Africa and come back. New York City and New York State, everyone helped. So that changed my process of New York, and that's the time I decided to get off to my business and start to do community service, which I did a community service here for 3 years for free, because I came to understand the African community was so disconnected. We have so many services in the neighborhood, but people didn't know, and language barrier also was a lot of the issue. So I work with Hybrid Community Life Center for a couple of years, connect our African community to different community, and this is the time coming to put the African people in the platform for people to know we are here and we're not going nowhere. We are part of this society and we all have to work together. And also, I was be part of a fight for Muslim Holiday Coalition in New York City to close the school for our holiday, Muslim holidays, the 2 holidays. And I did that fight for 10 years with different people, not only the Muslim people, but Jews, Christian, everybody coming to say, yeah, this is something has to be done. You know, I'm so proud of some of those things. And also as around 2009, 2010, we have a lot of African community people here. When you dress as African, like in today, you couldn't walk around and some of the neighborhood people was attacking them. And people couldn't go to the mosque at the morning. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning. We have to organize it again. We have to organize neighborhood, peace neighborhood, and bring everybody, all elected officials together. That's where we went to create a African Advisory Council to the Borough President Office, to be that group of people which they could connect with the elected officials and city services, tell them who we are. Because people have been tell people about who we are when we are here and nobody asks us. So it's a time for us to tell people who we are. Nobody have to tell about nobody, about who we are more than ourselves. So I'm so much involved, and that changed my prospect of New York, but it gave me also a hope to see this city. It's a city of immigrant community and different group people coming together. If you want to be good, you have so many good people who can be good with you to achieve what you want to do. If you want to be bad, you have also so many bad people who take you to that way. So it depends to you which way you want to go.
Wow, Mr. Niambele, I see the significant role that you play in the Malian community and the African communities. I also wanted to ask, how do you work to celebrate African identities outside of, legislation, and how do you encourage others to celebrate their African immigrant identities?
First of all, young people like you, I always celebrate Africa through the people like you, because every time when I see a young person who try to fight for justice, I see myself when I was young. I know it's not easy, but people who take those parts are the people who always going to make sure things have been done in a great way. So when I see young people coming from different parts, because here, when we are here, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. People see you as African. So it's better for us to figure out that quickly and be able to know collectively we have to change. Nobody will change our condition. It's up to us. So if we come to understand that, then we could trust the way for young kids. When you go back a little bit by 2015, 10 years ago, some of the African kids even here, when they was going to school, when people tell them they are African, they don't want people to tell them they are African because, or because the negative thing on press. But right now, when you look at coming to the Bronx and the African community in New York, a lot of the African kids now are proud to say they are African because people like you are involved. And people like you also make that kind of change. In our communities, a lot of the time we identify people with money, like the big actor or big this, big that. But those are not the way we change our society. Somebody can be a mechanic guy, right? Somebody can be a nursing, okay? Or doctor, or someone who just is a taxi driver, or is just someone who just go to work in McDonald's. But because the way you conduct yourself, the way you put yourself in society, different kids, because kids learn from us not just by what we say, but what we do every day. Okay, so if we could try to put some of those examples for kids to look at people like that, and they could see somebody in their own family. It could be their dad, it could be their mom, who are hair-braiding lady or a taxi driver. But because the hard work the dad do or the mom do, if the kid can identify themselves to say, I'm so proud of my parent, that's the beginning of people feel free, Because if you're not proud of yourself, you are in jail. And that's something I don't want to see in child. Myself, a lot of my kids, so, they come in here, but a lot of them, they are in Africa. My first son is today a doctor, is a pharmacist. And I have my daughter who is a lab technician, you know what I mean? And I have two boys who are in the university. One is in finance and the second one is in mining. All this is not because I have money or I have a power, but it's because the example I show to them. Nothing can come into you by free. You have to work for it and you have to fight for it. Those are the kind of things I think we need to have in our society. Not only the African community, but the Black community, the Latino community, the minority community, because a lot of the time, social media and media at all, and we as African here, and African continental, African American, Latino, because we all have a connection with Africa. We are the one who have to change also the process of press, because media is a big thing. So if we could have people like you people in the media who could show their Africanness, who could show their proudness to be African, that'll go a long way. These are the kind of things I want to see. Today, I'm a campaign manager of one of our brother, young African, who running for City Council 16, where we are here. And these are the path we have to take it for people to identify themselves as African, not just what the press tells them, war or famine. But when they take a vacation, they go to Africa and stay there forever. Something must be there for them to go to take a vacation to go to Africa. So those are the kind of things I like our people to know and be proud of yourself. When I met Amaha, who is the president of ACT, they are some of those organizations who make us more free today. Because a lot of the things we was doing before, like when it comes to anything, when it comes to immigration or coming to any social thing, people have to call you, you have to stop your job, you have to come back, you have to help them. But today, they don't need to call you because you have some of the non-profit organizations like an ACT who could go and do that job. And this is why I always tell them, I'm proud with them. This is why I become a member of the organization. Because these are the kind of things we want to encourage our young kids, our young generation to take over and be able to go for it. But the only problem for our young people, and I want to pass this message to you through them, sometimes they have a problem to recognize people who have made the step before them. It's like in your own house, right? Your parents, at some point, they have to even put foot on your mouth. But later on, you have to take care of them. My son is a doctor. I'm not a doctor. But did my son have to make me today like, oh, dad is a damn guy? It's not smart. If it was not for that, he might not be there. So if they could just give some of those little compassion, recognize what have been done before. Africa issue is a passion for me because I have put all my life on this. And I think the rest of my life, I will be fighting all over for justice and for make sure the African identity, people are proud of it.
So how does being part of ACT contribute to your goal in life of, empowering that African identity?
ACT have so many, my younger brothers and sisters who are very smart, who also are a real fighter. You see, even as a parent, right, when you have a child and the child become a fighter, sometimes you identify yourself to that child. I'm so proud of ACT because a lot of domain now, a lot of places they are fighting and helping so many African communities. I wish when I was more younger, I was able to get that vision. I'm so proud. I just give them, if I have some kind of guidance or anything, or just tell them, thank you for doing what you do and continue to do because we are proud of you.
If you could tell every single African immigrant in the Bronx and in New York one thing, what do you think it would be?
First of all, be proud of yourself. Second, believe on yourself. Third, this country is for you, is for me. The sky is a limit. You have to be ready to work hard in school. You have to take your education so seriously. Take your education so seriously, especially the African young and children who are born here. Because in the next 20 years, we want to see so many African doctors, lawyers, engineers, architects, in any domain. If you make here in New York, you could make in the United States. If you make in the United States, you could make in the whole planet. The Africans can shape the history of New York and the United States and shape the history of Africa. Because that's the only way Africa is going to make it. People who are in power in Africa, some of the time they are controlled by the politics of outside. But if we as outsiders could control that politics and go back to Africa, nobody can control us no more. So those are my wish, and those are the things I could tell the African young kid.
I've learned so much from this conversation, Mr. Niambele. I don't have any more questions for you, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
I just want to thank you and give me the opportunity, thank ACT to give me that opportunity. And June 22nd, vote for the African candidate. Let us change the history of African in this Bronx and New York City.
Thank you as well, Mr. Niambele. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you. God bless you.
Yeah. You too.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to the Forward Ever podcast, a collaboration between African Communities Together and Barnard College. To learn more about African Communities Together and the many ways you can support our mission, visit our website at africans.us or follow us on social media. Our social media handle on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter is AfricansUS. Like, comment, and share. Forward ever, backwards never.